When it comes to gaming and modelling, I think we've always been lucky in the UK to have a thriving convention scene. Even as far back as the dim and distant 70s, I can remember going to the Model Engineer exhibition every year at Wembley. Reading War Games used to put on an annual event called Colours, I think. And I also remember going to some of the early games days as well, just as D&D was coming out by, I think it was a very young and fledgling Games Workshop, or the Owl and Weasel fanzine that used to organise those. Now, of course, if we fast forward to the present day, we're almost overwhelmed with conventions. So today on Dragon's Teeth, we're looking at some dates for our diary. Hi, I'm Rob Hoyt and thanks for joining me today. So yes, conventions. And now I think the scene has expanded. Obviously gaming has expanded beyond just the war games into RPGs, computer games, LARPs and everything else. So we have that aspect. But now we also have conventions for what you might call the genres in general. So there'll be horror conventions, sci-fi, film and TV, comics, graphic novels. I even hear there's a convention for people who like Lovecraftian and Innsmouth related stuff. How strange. But of course, this does mean that we do get overlaps. And in fact, the very first date I'm going to mention coming up next weekend, the 7th and 8th of March, we do have one of those overlaps. On Saturday the 7th, Concrete Cow goes ahead in Wolverton, just outside Milton Keynes. This is a one-day event that is put on twice a year, and it's a whole day and evening of RPGs. I attended that last year and had a great morning being put through a mothership scenario, which really sparked my interest in that system. Basically, you go on the day and you sign up. There'll be various different systems and games on offer. You sign up on the day. It's nice and easy. The venue is very nice and very accessible. So I would be going to that again this year, which by the way, I think is their 20th anniversary this year. So 20 years, that's good going. I would be going there this year, but I'm already been booked into another convention, which is running on the 7th and 8th. In Bedford. That is the Bedford Tabletop Expo. That's being held at the Athletics Stadium near the town centre. This is a 2-day event put on by Robin at Hobby Hive, our local gaming shop. And I really like what Robin has done here because he's tried to cover everything in terms of gaming that you do on a tabletop. Well, gaming and modelling as well. So there's model railway stuff going on. There's war games that you can watch or join in, RPGs going on as well that you can join in, a host of traders from authors and books through to models and figures and scenery, a whole wide range of stuff, and that is set over 2 days. And I think I'm right in saying this is the 3rd year. I've been to the previous 2 as a trader. This time I'm trying something a little bit different. I'm going to be running drop-in games of my We Want the Gold, and in particular we're going to be doing the Innsmouth scenario. Yes, I'm taking Innsmouth to Bedford, not for the first time, as we'll find out. So 2 great events there in the local area next weekend. If you're at the Tabletop Expo, do pop over and say hello, and I might even rope you in for a quick jaunt through Innsmouth. You might get attacked by a deep one, or you could be the deep one doing the attacking. Who could resist that offer? Now, speaking of Innsmouth and bringing it to Bedford, our big news is that we are delighted to say we are returning in September with the Innsmouth Literary Festival. We have the King's House Centre in Bedford, our usual venue booked. This year it's going to be Saturday, September the 19th. That's all day on the Saturday, plus we have a Friday night quiz. And in the evening, we go into town for Innsmouth After Dark, which is an evening of spoken word performances and Lovecraftian comedy, if you can imagine such a thing. And we are extremely delighted to announce that this year we have 2 guests of honour. We have Mr. Stephen Jones, who is an author and editor who has put out something around 175 books, many of them, very many of them, well known to Lovecraftian fans, including three of my favourites. There's a trio of Innsmouth story collections: Shadow over Innsmouth, Weird Shadows over Innsmouth, and Weirder Shadows over Innsmouth. They have just been re-released by Titan as well, so that ties in nicely. We're delighted to have Stephen there. Our other guest of honour is the artist Les Edwards, who actually did the artwork for those original Innsmouth books and many, many other things as well. If you play Call of Cthulhu, if you remember the old hardback Call of Cthulhu book, Les did all those lovely colour plates in there. He's done artwork for games, paperbacks, so many things. He's long been one of my favourite artists, so I'm really looking forward to meeting both of them. As well as those two guests, of course, we have our other range of authors, and we've got some interesting speakers this year. We've got one gentleman who did a lot of research into Lovecraft's family roots in the UK, so there'll be a talk on that. There'll be a talk about a new book on the Necronomicon from an occult expert. And of course, we'll have our usual traders, gaming, and all the the general Innsmouth madness going on as well. At the moment, we've just got an info page up on the website. I'll put a link down to that below. But do keep an eye out, because we'll be offering early bird tickets on that very soon. And of course, if you are a trader who'd like to join us as well, then do drop me a line. Now, if you Google conventions and gaming conventions and everything else, there's tons and tons of stuff. I'm going to be restricting here to things that I've been to or am likely to go to this year. I want to get out to more conventions, both as a trader and to promote We Want the Gold, but also just to go and have a look round, have a chat, make some new friends, and of course do some shopping, because, you know, you always need some extra stuff, right? So, April the 11th, we have Salute. This is the South London War Games Group big show. This is down at Excel again this year, and I went to that last year. Huge event. I can't remember the final figures, 11, 12,000. It may have been even more, I can't quite remember. But the Excel Centre is a big place, you know, a big room, and it was packed. I think they're making some changes this year to make it a little more comfortable perhaps, but really everyone and everything is there in the War Games world. And that was one of the best War Games conventions I've been to. You really can spend all day there just wandering around looking at the traders, taking part in games, and there were some amazing table layouts there as well. So that's definitely one for my diary. Salute. May the 29th to the 31st is the UK Games Expo in Birmingham. I think it's at the NEC. This isn't one that I've been to, but I'm thinking about maybe going this year. I've heard different things. I've heard it's a very good expo, and certainly from what I've seen on YouTube, there's a lot of very interesting stuff there. It's broadly game related, so it's not just RPGs and war games, it's board games, family games, all that sort of thing as well. But it does look like a very good one. However, I do hear complaints about things like the parking fee is very expensive and things like that. But yeah, I want to make plans to get across to that one this year. Birmingham's not far away, just a quick trip across the M6. So that's May the 29th to the 31st, UK Games Expo. When it comes to RPGs, I went to 3 conventions last year. We've already mentioned Concrete Cow. I also went to Chaosium Con and Continuum, both held at the same venue, Cranfield University, just outside Bedford. It was kind of halfway between Bedford and Milton Keynes, so it can be a little tricky to get to if you don't drive, but it is an excellent place. You can stay there as well. It's a university campus basically, so they've got rooms and they've got loads of space and rooms for gaming as well. Chaosium Con is the 21st to the 24th of May, and as the name suggests, that's a focus on Chaosium games, so including things like RuneQuest, Call of Cthulhu, Pendragon and many other things as well. As well as the gaming, there are traders there and talks and lectures going on across the 3 days. So really splendid event, that one. And that, I think they do that around the world now. I think they do one in the UK, one in Europe. There's at least one in the States as well. So Chaosium are really, they're spreading their tentacles across the globe. And why shouldn't they? Continuum is the 24th to the 27th of July. So again, that's another 3-day event. That's mostly based on RPGs. But of course, that's not just limited to one company. So a real wide range of games and events going on there. And again, there's traders and that sort of thing going on as well. I'm looking forward to going to both of those again this year. Nice to meet a lot of new people there. I'll be waving my ILF flag, of course, and maybe at Continuum I'll look at running a We Want the Gold scenario or two. So keep an eye out for that as well. If we go back to our wargaming, Saturday, September the 6th, we have Hereward put on by our friends at Peterborough War Games Club. That's a great event. Oh, I say war games, but there's RPGs going on as well. There's a room full of traders. And last year they had a gentleman dressed very convincingly, I might say, as Hereward the Wake, who opened proceedings by tooting on his rather large horn. That was exciting. So I'm going to be at that one again. Not sure in which capacity yet. I might be there as a trader, or maybe I'll be putting on a demo game. Not sure which yet, but that's one of my favourite shows. That's September the 6th up in Peterborough. October the 26th is another convention I like to attend. That is Fiasco up in Leeds. I really like this one because you've got the convention itself, which is a great space full of games, RPGs, traders, all the usual stuff going on. But of course you walk across the square and you are in Leeds Armoury, which, if you've never been there, is a fantastic collection of arms and weapons and militaria throughout the ages, from samurai armour through to World War II stuff and beyond. It really is a great museum. I did have a slight incident last year. I did manage to break an exhibit, but I won't go into that now. It was all very embarrassing. Anyway, I assume that hasn't shut the whole place down. So well worth a look if you want a great day's gaming, and then you can pop across to the museum as well. And that really is just covering some of the gaming stuff that's going on, or ones that I've personally been to. Of course, there's a load of other things happening as well. Oh, Dragon Meet, I'm not sure when that's happening this year. That is usually in November. I went to that at Hammersmith a couple of years ago. I think they possibly moved the venue, so I'll check out that one as well. That was mostly RPG based. But as I said at the start, as well as all those, there's loads of horror conventions now, comic conventions going on. I went to a few of those last year. There was Horror in the Shed just up the road to me at Rushton, which was quite a small event, but very good. And I have been to some Comic-Cons, both as a member of the public and as a trader. I would give a word of warning about some of the Comic-Cons. Just check them out. There are some very good ones. We went to one in Milton Keynes a couple of years back. In fact, I think I put a video up of that on the channel here. But there are one or two companies who organise these events all around the country, most weekends or certainly every month. And I was a trader at one of those. I think I spent 50 quid for the table. It cost 50 quid to have a space there. The people running it, the organisers, turned up at the start, took everyone's money and then disappeared. We never saw them again throughout the day. It was just a room full of traders. There were no guests, there were no talks, there were no sign-ins or anything like that. And it was billed as a comic convention, but I would say 80% of the stalls there were selling Funko Pops and similar items. In fact, the only other person selling comics there apart from me was the Unreality store. And most of the comics he had on sale were ones that he'd bought from me. I sold a big part of my collection a few years back, and he bought those. So the only comics I had to look at were my own, pretty much. Yeah, if you're a comic collector or into graphic novels or anything, not really a great event. If you like Funko Pops and collectibles, maybe. But you're most likely going to pop in, do one circuit of the hall and come out again. They're not really what I'd call a convention. There we go then, there's a few dates there for your diary. I hope some of those tickle your interest. If you are at any of those and you do see me wandering around wearing this or some sort of Innsmouth related clothing, do come up and say hello, please. And yeah, I was say, if you fancy a quick go of We Want the Gold, I'll be happy to rope you in to Innsmouth. You might never leave, you never know. And yeah, as I said at the start, I've restricted this to events I've been to over the last year or so, or plan on going to this year. If there are any other events that you would recommend, please do let me know. drop a message down below there, and a link would be good as well. And I'd also like to give a shout out to convention organisers as well, because it's a little bit like anything, gigs or parties or any type of event. When you go along as a punter, hopefully you have a nice time, and everything generally runs very smoothly. All the events I've been to, everything has run very smoothly. That is because of the work and effort of the organisers and their teams as well, because no one can do this kind of thing on their own. Even for the Innsmouth Literary Festival, which is a relatively small event, there's 3 of us, and we have like 4 or 5 assistants as well, without whom nothing much would get done. So I know how much work goes into organising these events. So a huge thanks and a huge tip of the hat to all of those who organise the events. And of course, the best way we can support them is by talking about them and actually going along and attending. All right, that's it for today. As always, if you want to keep up to date with what's going on, click the subscribe button below. Thanks to all those who've subscribed already. I've noticed we've had a few more subscribers over this last few weeks. So thank you very much for signing up and your support. It really is appreciated. Always happy to hear from you. Pop a comment below or drop me an email at dragoteeth@outlook.com, or perhaps I'll bump into you at one of those events. See you soon.